Romans chapter 11, verse 11. I say then, did they stumble so as to fall? May it never be. But by their transgression, salvation has come to the Gentiles to make them jealous. Now, if their transgression is riches for the world, and their failure is riches for the Gentiles, how much more will their fullness be? But I am speaking to you who are Gentiles, inasmuch then as I am an apostle of Gentiles, I magnify my ministry, if somehow I might move to jealousy my fellow countrymen and save some of them. For if their rejection is the reconciliation of the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? And if the first place of dough is holy, the lump is also. And if the root is holy, the branches are too. I'm going to stop there, only because 16 is starting to get into something kind of deeper here. All right. So I'm not sure exactly what you guys concluded last week.
They said, we'll wait till Howard gets back there.
Just to kind of get us back into a running start, Paul had been talking about how God had not actually rejected or removed Israel from God's plan, if you could kind of call it that. He's assuring them that they're still part of it.
Yeah.
But the main focus now has been on the Gentiles here. And so we get into Paul using his same technique in verse 11 about asking a question so that he can say, clarify it out, right? A rhetorical kind of question. The first phrasing then, I say then, did they stumble so as to fall? As we get older, we stumble becomes one of our common activities, but yet we don't always fall. And what he's using here is, I think the NIV, I don't know if anyone's got the NIV. The NIV adds beyond, beyond recovery. You fall beyond recovery, which I think is a great clarifying, that it's not like when you and I stumble and down we go, we're going to get right back up.
Right.
At least most of us.
If you get to that stage, we may not.
I know. Next year may be a totally different statement on my part, but for right now, I can still get up. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of a commercial. I've fallen and I can't get up.
Oh, yeah.
I keep thinking of that commercial. And so Paul is asking, is Israel who stumbled, okay, who failed to accept as a whole Christ as their Savior, are they beyond any hope? Are they gone forever? And Paul is trying to say, no, right? May it never be, as he answers. But by their transgression, salvation has come to the Gentiles to make them jealous. Was that really God's plan?
Well, obviously through Abraham, it was, Paul had previously talked about that,
Yeah.
to bring the nations to God, and the Jewish people, that was their mission.
Was it God's plan to make/allow, I don't know what word to put in there, to make them fail, to stumble. I'm sorry, that's the word I was looking for. Was it God's plan to make Israel
Well, you
stumble?
talked a little bit about that last week, because short answer is yes. I got to clarify, because some of the commentary I was reading last week about the preliminary before this was that God used Jews as a whole, to stumble, because that's what allowed Christ to be sacrificed. Because had Christ come into an accepting nation, thank you,
Uh-huh.
then he would not have been, he would have been glorified, not crucified. And the crucifixion, well, and the stuff around it, you know,
Death, burial, resurrection.
allow the Gentiles and the non-chosen to be brought in. So it's one of those, you know, I don't know, there's a phrase that I can't remember right offhand, but God allowed, you know, everything's in God's plan, so he allowed or caused, as you say, for enough hardening of the Jews to allow Christ to be fulfilled.
Interesting.
And I thought that was an interesting take that I had not heard before. Then later it said, I forgot which verse, I can't remember offhand, that the nation of Israel will be brought back in. I forgot the terminology.
We'll say it again here in just a few
Yeah.
minutes.
A remnant will be, yeah.
So it was just kind of and I kind of equate that to, well, I was thinking of my kids, but also in the business. Sometimes you want something to happen so you can make an example of someone.
The phrase is no pain, no gain.
Well, not really that.
Okay?
Because to me, that's, you know, like workout, you have to, but sometimes if you have a group of people, you want to have one singled out that you can punish, put the proverbial head on a stake. I mean that very proverbially, to show others that, hey, I got to either do right or wrong or whatever, but it's the example. Because they'll remember that a lot more than just don't touch the hot stove.
You said something earlier that poked a question in my head, a what if. Very dangerous in the first place to be at, but if the Jews had not rejected Jesus and accepted him as Messiah, would then there be no hope for the Gentiles?
Possibly.
Well, again, the Jews' purpose as a covenant was to bring the Gentiles to God.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to go back to the beginning of time,
Right.
right? I mean, that's where everything starts. Is God knew, right, that in His creation that there was going to be a rejection, right? But He also knew that that He had a plan, a foreplan as to how this was going to happen. So He brings that through. He brings that plan through with Abraham, right, through the seed. So the whole history of the Jewish people is getting the seed from Abraham to Christ, to
Right.
crucifixion, right? That's the whole of Israeli history, is how God is weaving His way in protecting the seed to get it all the way through to where Christ comes, and He allows. He doesn't cause, but He allows these things to happen to drive the people back to Him. It's the same reason why He allows things in our life, many cases, right? It's that we drive them, He drives us back to them because He allows us to go our own way.
And then one step further, why did He send Jesus to earth?
Well, because He had to, because of sin, because He foreknew that mankind would rebel against Him.
Because we've all, myself included, talked about the purpose of getting Christ to the crucifixion, I'll say, not
Right.
just bringing Him to the earth.
Right.
But the purpose of that was to be the sacrifice for all man.
Yeah.
Men. That's what the right
Mankind.
context is. Mankind, yeah, whatever. But
Yeah.
so the idea is that He can be that blood sacrifice for everybody.
Yes.
And working backwards, well, how can He get that? Well, He has to be rejected by the ruling class, if you will, the Jews. That's not the right word, but you know what I mean. He had to be rejected enough to be crucified.
Yeah.
Now, I guess you could have done it through the Roman side and kept the Jews out of it altogether, but
Right.
that's God's plan.
Yeah.
You have that look.
Yeah, well, I guess because the way my thought is this, I think there was a point in history. God, in the beginning, God says, I'm going to create man. And yet in his knowledge and his omniscience, he knows what's going to happen. He sees the end from the beginning. So he comes up with a plan, and he sets a date in history when this is going to happen. Right? And I believe that date was set from the foundation of the world. Right? So everything that unfolds, all of history, all of the history of mankind, all the history of the Jewish people, keep rolling to that date. And that date, the date that Christ was crucified, was set at the beginning of time. Because had it been before, there would have been no crucifixion. Because crucifixion hasn't been there for all time. Crucifixion was only a punishment at that time. And yet it was foretold that there was going to be crucifixion. Right? So that point in time is the center point of all of human history. Because it's at that point in time that was created from the beginning of the foundation of everything that God had thought, changed all of history, right? And that the Jewish people had a big part to play in that, is that they got the seed all the way to that point, and then then Jesus' fulfillment of that.
All right, and this is a question that, I agree with you, I'm not arguing with that.
Yeah.
Now that Christ has come on that date and been crucified, which is really kind of what we're talking about, does that mean the Jews have no more purpose
No.
as a nation?
No. And we'll see that in here.
That's the question I'm laying out. I'm not
absolutely,
arguing. I'm
yeah.
just, because you could, based on what you said, I heard the purpose of,
Right.
and I'm thinking, I'm goal oriented. The goal was to get Christ here and
Yes.
crucified. All right, done that, tick the box.
Right.
So are they needed anymore?
Well, are they needed? No. God doesn't need. God
Well,
didn't
okay,
need
fair
you.
enough,
He
fair
doesn't
enough.
need the Gentiles, right?
Fair enough.
But they have a different purpose now. The Jewish
Okay.
people, the people that are Jewish have the same purpose now as you do.
Right.
It's a different purpose. Now they're just like you and I, right? But they're special in that they have a burden to bear, and that God came to them and wanted to use them, and yet they continually rejected him, right? So at the end of time, I believe most of what we read in Revelation is all about the nation of Israel coming back, right? So God is going to redeem his people who, they'll see him for who he is, said to weep and moan for what they've done and their recognition of who they crucified. So I think or they have no purpose? No, they have the same purpose as you and I do,
Yeah.
right? Is they have to come to salvation just like you and I do.
Okay.
That's in a roundabout way, not answering the question.
Yeah. I think we're all saying the same thing.
And a fine job you guys are doing. As a reminder, when we talk about God's plans and his foreknowledge and stuff, remember, we often will look at it from our point of view,
Yes,
and not from God's point of view,
Right.
what he's looking at. Okay. So while it does not make sense to us, we're down here from looking at it this way. He's up, if I may, he's up there looking down at the whole thing. So
And our brains are this big.
yeah,
compared to that.
exactly. Yeah,
It's like a 2-year-old's brain compared to.
compared to I don't know. I don't dare.
Yeah, exactly.
With it. Now, I find it interesting in verse 11 that there's a statement at the very end, and I find it interesting is this, to make them jealous. Because the word jealous in our today's words is basically a negative word. It's a thing that you shouldn't do, right? Don't be jealous. We hear it all the time in a negative context. For some reason, I'm sensing this is not a negative, but rather a desirous.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want what you have.
I want what you have.
Not to the point of
You don't get
knocking
it.
you over the head for it,
Right.
but
Yeah, because we've taken jealousy as, I want what you have, and I don't want you having it. In other words, I want the same thing. It's not, I want what you actually have.
Right.
Withdraw it from you, and I want to keep it.
Right.
I don't think that's what that word is. I think it's, I want the same thing that you have.
The irony is this is what God's original intent of Israel.
That's what I was gonna ask you.
That was his original intent, he would use the nation of Israel to make the other nations jealous.
Jealous, and we see that
Right.
all over the Old Testament, all over the place, about do this so that the nations will know.
Right, so there's only one God, so they'll reject their idols and. other
Right, they'll say,
gods.
wow, this one God is doing all of this. He's protected us through battles, he's provided fruit and produce and milk and honey and everything out of the desert
Yes,
on it. People, they'd be saying, wow, that's what I want.
right, exactly.
And so when we see this word jealous, it's not a negative, but rather an enticement, an incentive, maybe is the word.
Other definitions of that, it looks like it says to be enthusiastic and be excited.
Oh, yeah.
That's a positive connotation.
We
Yeah,
use the
that's
word
more of a
often, remember,
positive.
zealous,
Yes,
Yeah.
about using that zealousness, because jealous and zealous are off the same root word here.
And zealot, well, at least you don't hear that word a whole lot, has a negative connotation.
It can,
can.
depending
Yeah,
upon
some
which
of the
side of the
Latin
fence
word
you're,
zealots.
depends on which side of the fence you're on.
Right, well, true.
I mean, if you're on my team, I want a zealous player,
Yeah.
right? I don't want the guy on the other side to be zealous, right? So, yeah.
and I think that the difference too is, there's a difference between jealousy and envious, right?
Yes.
Because envious is being jealous for something and to the point of I'll take it from you so that I can have it, right?
But I don't know what the definition of envy is, because they're almost,
Yeah, the NIV translates as envious. So,
New American Standard is jealous.
yeah,
I think, yeah,
ESV is jealous.
what does NIV, you say?
NIV is envious. It uses that same word,
Yeah.
envious. So,
I've always heard that envious it's a different,
like
it's
covetousness.
a covetousness, right? I want what you have, which would be jealousy. I want to experience that, but to the point that I would take it away from you.
Right.
So
That's
that,
envious.
that you don't have it anymore,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Because I've always thought, to me, envious, and I don't know nothing about linguists, so this is just my, envious is a little lower than jealousy. Jealousy is I'll take it away from, envious is more of a passive instead of a
Yeah. Well,
proactive thing, but that's just,
I didn't look it in the Greek to
like I
find
said,
out.
there
I
may be
didn't look it up,
something there.
yeah.
but we know words have evolved over centuries, so.
Yeah, but the goal, again, was to draw attention back to God.
Right.
And God is doing this to draw attention to God. As a matter of fact, that phrasing, but their transgression, they are being Israel. Transgression, salvation has come to the Gentiles, okay, to make them jealous. 12. Now, if their transgression, speaking of Israel, is riches for the world, and their failure is the riches for the Gentile, how much more will their fullness be? Okay, that sounds like code word.
It really does, that one was not clear to me.
So if their transgression is the riches for the world, what does that mean?
Well, if you go back up to 11 and you say that they've stumbled, and because they've stumbled, it made it possible, or it made it to where the Gentiles would come in. I mean, that's the blessing, right? Is that it's, even though they've stumbled, it was a blessing to the Gentiles,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And to the world, therefore, to the rest of the world.
Right,
Because
world
they
being
were,
the Gentiles,
the
right.
Gentiles were the rest of the world.
Right.
As opposed to the Jews. Such to a point that even though that was a blessing, what a greater blessing is going to be when they all come to the realization of who Christ was. I mean, what a glorious thing when even those that have rejected him now come to the realization of who he was. What an incredible thing that's going to be.
Yeah, and maybe we're stumbling on, no pun intended, on the word richness. Is all the translation have riches
Riches, yeah.
on
Yeah.
that? That we're thinking coins and money and
Yeah.
gold and diamond when we hear the word riches,
Yeah,
but that's not,
no.
I don't think is what's being described here.
Yeah, Paul talks about, you know, how obviously we've been given all the riches of heaven. And so I mean, we've been given something that's greater than any of the greatest treasures
That's
found
right.
on earth.
And that is a relationship
Yeah.
with God.
That's right.
And in the Old Testament, the Jews, that was what all those laws were for, was to enhance the relationship with God. They turned that around, of course,
Right,
to be regulations and the do's and don'ts, but
right.
they had a richness with God because they had a relationship with Him. They had His blessings
Yeah,
on it.
yeah. I mean, think about, you know, having a relationship. They had more than just a relationship. They had the physical presence.
I was going to just say that, yeah, the presence.
I mean, it wasn't, you know, I mean, we know we have the Holy Spirit, right? And we know the Holy Spirit lives and dwells inside of us, but I don't see the Holy Spirit. They physically saw God.
The cloud.
They saw the cloud.
They saw that.
They saw the fire.
Right.
They saw what happened to Moses when he came out from the, you know, from the tabernacle and
The
the
Shekinah
way,
glory, yeah.
you know, so it was a physical presence that went with them. They saw the manna. They saw the, you know, all the things that they you know, that they observed, and you know, the other nations saw it too.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, how could they have not? You know. With it. So they're in then 12 for that riches for the world, and their failure, there being Israel. Israel's failure is riches for the Gentiles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? How much more will their fullness be? When you are, I don't know if you've ever been on really long-term projects, and which I have, that sometimes years length of projects. And when you're starting a project and you're on the beginning of this multi-year project, you may not be at the ending point. But I'm very involved in the beginning. The foundation's laid. Everything is being set up. But then I have to go off the project because my skill set was not for the rest of the project. But the project continues and then succeeds. Okay? How much more is my joy that the whole project finished?
It's a great example.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like, you're talking like a physical building. I mean, it's
Right.
just amazing.
Yeah, yeah. The architect that starts early,
Mhm.
right, isn't involved in the final screwing in the light bulb,
Yeah, that's right.
right? But he is still part of that victory of that construction, of the completion of that with it. And I think that's what this is really trying to say. How much more will Israel's fullness be? Completeness. That's what that fullness is. It's that satisfaction to completion.
Here they use the word fulfillment.
Fulfillment. That's right. That's right.
And that will not be until they come to see Christ for who He was.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, that will be the end of the
That will
project.
be right. That will be the fulfillment when
Yeah.
they come to that fullness.
Yeah.
And,
And I think that's what we're all praying for.
Right.
Right now is we want to see the people of Israel, you know, acknowledge Christ as their Lord and Savior,
Right.
as their Messiah,
Yeah,
as He is ours.
Yep.
absolutely. I find it interesting that because of the way the English is, in that last phrase, how much more will their fullness be? I always want to say that as a question mark.
Yeah.
As a question. But the editors here put an exclamation mark.
Yeah.
Same here. Yeah.
Okay? If only they had used the phrase, oh, how it would be, you know, as opposed to just how as a question. I think, and that's what I mean by that is, Paul was not questioning that.
Yeah.
He was declaring
Yeah.
that, how much that is.
Good point.
Oh. Interesting that he then turns to this 13, which is, I really have a hard time with 13. But I'm speaking to you who are Gentiles. That part, I've got that. I'm fine with that part here. Inasmuch then as I am an apostle of Gentiles. I'm kind of okay with that. Then that last phrase, I magnify my ministry. Do you have a different wording for I magnify my ministry? It's magnify. So think of like a magnifying glass. You get clarity. You can see better. You know more in depth. You know, when you look at an ant with a magnifying glass, you see all its details that you didn't see without it. I'm wondering if that's what he's trying to say, is that I'm starting to realize the fullness of my ministry. What my true purpose of this ministry was to both. I'm in Gentile now, but I still have my ministry to the Jews. And I say that because of the next sentence, or the next phrase here, 14. If somehow I might move to jealousy, there's that word again, to my fellow countrymen. And who's the fellow countrymen?
Yeah.
Israel, the Jews, right?
Yeah. I think what he's trying to say there is, his ministry and the ministry given to him by Christ was to go to the Gentiles. But in speaking to the Gentiles, if his speaking to the Gentiles brings in, and that's the magnifying, right? His ministry is enlarged, and even in his own eyes is, how much greater is my ministry now, because now I'm not only going to the Jews, but I'm starting to get some of my own people,
That's right.
the Jewish people. I'm bringing them in because of what Christ is doing through my ministry. So that ministry, even in his own eyes, is just increasing in scope and in magnitude, because now he's bringing in more than,
Is there a phrase in a song to magnify him, or to magnify the Lord?
make him
To make him bigger.
big and bigger,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The disciples went to Jesus one time and said, there are other people who are baptizing, right? And they're saying, should we go stop them from baptizing?
Yeah.
And Jesus told them, no, don't do that. That's just making the whole ministry, it's magnifying everything. It's making the whole ministry bigger. It's
Yeah.
making it larger,
Yeah.
making the scope and the,
Don, you about to say something?
Yeah, the Greek word is doxolo, and it's where we get our word doxology
yeah.
from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. And praise God for blessings. So that is that declaring the magnifying of the Lord,
Yeah.
focusing on Him.
the vastness of him.
Yeah. Huh.
I have to admit, in all the times I've read this, I didn't really look at the word magnify. I think I put in multiply in my mind.
Oh, really? Okay. Interesting.
And I'm just trying to figure out why I'm confused on this. And I just, how you read something and you just keep reading it wrong every time?
Yeah.
I interpreted that as
Making my ministry bigger.
bigger.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm an apostle to the Gentiles, I'm talking to Gentiles, so I'm doing, I'm spreading the word, I'm expanding my ministry. This is exactly what we're supposed to do. I didn't really look at the word magnify.
Wow.
So I
Just a
don't-
thought came to me about how we measure church success is by expanding the church, multiplying the members. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying it's what we do as humans, as man, is we look at the success of a preacher is that the congregation grows bigger.
And or the building, which
Yeah,
in theory
yeah.
goes in line,
Theory,
may not.
more people, bigger building, and we call that success. And we see that in mega churches and stuff, and we kind of imply a success. I don't think that's what this ministry is. It's not about what you had, I agree with you, it's not about multiplying, but rather about magnifying.
Mhm.
Is God getting more of that focus
Right.
of that ministry? Is the pastor being successful by bringing better magnification, clarity? Is God being made known better?
Yeah.
That kind of a
To me, the whole idea of the idea of magnifying is it's a visual thing, right?
Yeah.
When something is magnified, it's bigger because of what we see. It's increasing our vision, it's
Right.
increasing
Through
what we
focus.
see,
Through-
through focus.
through
So,
Dedicated focus to get rid of the peripheral and get down to the focus.
well, no, I think it's, when I'm thinking of magnifying, I'm thinking of looking at something and it's actually, if I use a magnifying glass, I'm looking at something small and it's getting a lot
But you're
bigger.
putting, but you're
I
blocking out
I
the
understand what
real
you're-
distractions out here, you're focusing.
Yeah,
What these are for,
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
so we can see.
So we can see, so that whole idea, no, it's not a multiplication thing, it's the way, and it's the way that Paul sees it. The way that Paul sees his ministry is very important, right? Because the way he sees it is what drives him. The way that we see our ministry, the way that we see our relationship with God and what he's done for us, that's what drives us to do what he's called us to do, right? So it's all about the way that we see the the ministry. So I think it was important for Paul to say, yeah, my ministry is expanded, but I can also see it being expanded. And man, when I see my ministry getting expanded and it's going to the Jews, that just makes me even more,
Pumped.
yes, yeah, even more desirous to go out and continue to do the things that, that God wants me to do, because man, this thing is just, it's just going.
Right,
you know?
all the more, Paul says, if somehow I might move them to jealousy, my fellow countrymen, and do what?
Save them.
Several. Well, mine has saved some of them, by the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah,
On it. So all of that work, if I can just get a few,
Right.
then, if all this work saves one person, it's worth it. That kind of thinking that goes on there.
but it's more than that, it's,
We-
I'm working here, but if I can drag some of my people along with it,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, all the more.
But that's not the focus.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but not only great, but how awesome
Yeah.
is that, right?
Yeah.
That I'm able to, even though my ministry is not directly to them now, it's more focused on the Jews, right? But how awesome is it that some of my fellow people would come in and be affected by the words that I'm saying? That would be awesome to me because I'm a Jew,
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's his
right?
people.
That's his people. And how awesome would that be that they would,
Come in, that's great.
Yeah. So in 14, where it says, I might move to jealousy my fellow countrymen, the Amplified had added to that, to jealousy, so as to see the blessing, my fellow countrymen, which I thought was a great clarification. That's what he's trying to bring them to see, is to see that blessing of what God's is all about here. 15, for if their rejection is the reconciliation of the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead?
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is.
And that is a question,
And that is a question.
as opposed to
A declaration, right.
statement.
Well, we need to stop here. I was looking at that going, should we try to dig into that?
No,
I think we will stop at 15. All right. Unless you got a comment you need to
No,
make on it.
not sure.
We'll stop there, okay?
yeah, that goes on for another half hour, or an hour right there.
All right, so we'll stop there. Okay, so we'll stop here. What are you guys praying for?